Hi guys, how are you? I hope you're always healthy and happy. This time, Film Snap will tell you about the movie called Heaven Knows Mr. Allison in 1957. It tells the story of a man trapped in a remote island. And on that island, he only lives with a pretty maid. What do they do together on that island? This movie takes place during the Second World War in 1944, when Japan was fighting America in the Pacific Ocean. It shows a U.S. Navy corporal named Mr. Allison who is floating in the sea. He has been floating in the sea for a few days on a rubber boat. And finally, he got stuck on a remote island in the Pacific Ocean. As he arrived on land, and as a soldier, Allison sneaked into the island, quietly and cautiously, because he was afraid that the island would be occupied by Japanese troops. But as soon as he got there, he was confused, looking left and right, because there was no one there. After walking around, Allison did not find a single person on the island. All he found was a few empty houses, a cemetery, and other buildings that did not look inhabited. Then, Allison went into one of the houses to check. And when he was behind the small house, he looked up and saw a place of worship, which was nothing but an old church, which seemed to have something alive inside. Out of curiosity, he approached the old church. As soon as he got there, Allison found a caretaker named Ella. She was sweeping or cleaning. Seeing that, Allison spontaneously asked, "Is there a Japanese person on this island?" The caretaker replied that there is no one on this island other than her. Hearing that, Allison was very happy, because the island was safe from the enemy. Then, Allison asked for permission to rest. The short story of the night came. When she woke up from her sleep, it was seen that Ella Shibirawati was praying while lighting a candle. As soon as Allison was surprised and immediately turned off the candle. She did it all for their safety, because the Japanese soldiers could appear at any time and see the candlelight. It meant that they could be caught by the enemy. Then, Ella apologized for her ignorance. The scene continued. Because she couldn't see Allison who hadn't eaten and drank, Ella gave the rest of the food to Allison, because it seemed that Allison was very hungry. After eating the biscuit, Allison asked if she had a cigarette. Ella replied that she only had a cigarette butt. Allison gladly accepted the cigarette, but rather than not having any at all. It turned out that the cigarette butt was the remains of Opa Pillip, whose grave was next to the church page. In the middle of their conversation, then Ella also told why she could be on this island, where it all started when she and Opa Pillip and the residents of the place where she lived went on a trip to the island of Fiji. But before arriving at the place, Opa Pillip asked Ella to stop by the island first to pick someone up. But that person was no longer on the island. And unfortunately, maybe, because they were too long on the island, the ship sailed away, leaving them both on the island without giving a signal or a code to them first. Because maybe the ship was afraid of the Japanese soldiers. Seeing that reality, Ella and Opa Pillip were forced to live on the island. But unfortunately, the next day, Opa Pillip was lying on the beach with no life left, alias dying. Hearing this story, Ella Allison also said that the reality must be very difficult for Ella. And Ella replied that what Allison experienced must be much more difficult than the disaster she experienced. Allison also said it was very dangerous and difficult. Even her own life was at stake. At that time, Allison and her friends were doing a search near their submarine. But unfortunately, their search was discovered. Until finally, they were shot by the Japanese soldiers. Seeing the danger, their captain was forced to flee with his submarine. Meanwhile, Allison and her friends who were on the surface fled using their own rafts. And after a few days of wandering, Allison finally arrived on this island. After hearing that, then Ella went inside to rest, remembering that the day was already late at night. The next morning, Allison, who was hungry, took the initiative to make a bamboo stake to hunt so she could survive on the island. But unfortunately, Allison didn't get her prey. Not long after, Ella also showed that there was a squirrel who was sunbathing on a rock. Without further thought, Allison also asked Ella to hunt the squirrel. While carrying a stick, they ran to the cliff. When they reached the shore, they immediately boarded Allison's rubber boat. And the boat itself was a coconut tree. When it was close, Allison was ready to catch the squirrel. Using a tool that had been prepared before, and with a little self-confidence, while hesitating if catching the squirrel was easy. Suddenly, Allison got carried away and pulled by the squirrel into the sea. Ella panicked, looking worried and confused about what to do. But fortunately, because Allison was a soldier, She managed to survive and brought the squirrel to her rubber boat. When they arrived on land, they immediately cooked the squirrel's prey and ate it while chatting. In the middle of the chat, they planned to go to the island of Fiji using the rubber boat. At first, Allison doubted the impossible plan. But because she was persuaded by Ella, they tried it first. In the middle of the preparation, a Japanese soldier's plane suddenly passed by. Allison secured her rubber boat and took off while covering their bodies with coconut leaves. After the Japanese plane left, they also lowered their intention and will hide in a cave for a few days. After feeling safe, they could continue their plan by sailing to the island of Fiji using the rubber boat that had been modified. Because for their safety, Ella agreed. Then at night, they rested in a cave. The short story of the morning came. Allison woke up because she heard the sound of the plane around the island. Because of that, she went and looked at it to check the situation outside. When she was surprised, because it was the sound of a Japanese Air Force fighter plane who deliberately came to destroy the island by bombing it with an air bomb. In the cave, Ella heard the scary sound when it made her scared and tremble until she had to be calmed by Allison. When they left, they were surprised to see the beautiful island that had been destroyed, and there were many bombs on the island. Even the churches and empty houses on the island were all burned to ashes. Allison also said that there were no more fruits left on this island except for the coconut and the rubber boat. The only one they had was damaged by the impact of the Japanese air attack. In the middle of their conversation, suddenly there was a Japanese warship in the sea, and it looked like they were going to ambush on this island and make a Japanese army camp. Seeing that, Allison and Ella rushed into the cave to hide. Because if the Japanese army saw them, they would be in danger. In the cave, Allison continued to guard with her commando knife to make sure that the Japanese army entered the cave. But fortunately, the Japanese army did not know the location of the cave. But Ella, with her stupidity, intended to surrender herself to Japan. She thought that if she surrendered herself, she would be saved as a hostage. But Allison said, "Don't go to Gaba." Hearing that, Ella also followed Allison's words to stay hidden. The short story of the night also arrived. It was seen that they were eating fish that had just been stung by Allison by the sea secretly and forced them to eat it raw. But Ella, who tried to eat the raw fish, did not budge, apologizing to Allison. Seeing that, Allison was not firm. Then she went out and intended to steal food at the Japanese army camp. And before she left, Allison covered her face with a blanket for her disguise. In the midst of super tight security, Allison sneaked in carefully and managed to enter the food warehouse without being noticed by the guards. With a short time, she took advantage of the time by bringing the food she could bring. When Allison finished and was ready to leave, unfortunately, someone suddenly entered the room. His name was Sasuke. With a little surprise, he was forced to hide in the corner of the warehouse. But suddenly a lieutenant came who invited Sasuke to play carambole while drunk in the room. After waiting for a long time, they finally left the room. Because of that, Allison also left her hiding place. When she wanted to escape, Allison saw a guard outside the room. He lowered his intention to escape and kept waiting. Until the next morning, Allison was able to get out of the room. Because every morning, the Japanese army was focusing on conducting ceremonies outside. At that time, she didn't run away because her place was so open. But Allison gradually moved forward and hid behind a pole. When she felt safe, she also hid and ran to Ella, who was guarding near the cave. Then Allison rushed into the cave because it was very dangerous for both of them. In the cave, I don't know why, Ella didn't want to eat the food brought by Allison. It's all not without a reason, but Ella was very worried about Allison. And she forbade her to do that again, which endangered her life. Seeing Ella angry, Allison made a comb and also took a bunch of roses and then put the comb and the roses near her bed as a sign of apology. Her effort was successful. When she woke up, Ella looked happy and liked the comb and the roses and will keep it as a souvenir from Allison. I guess I could always use it to comb my beard, huh? That night, Allison and Ella were surprised to hear a loud explosion from outside. And it turned out to be from the middle of the ocean, which was in the middle of a big battle. The short story of the morning also arrived. Allison was excited and happy because she saw that there were no more Japanese soldiers on the island. Then Allison called Ella to go out. Because they were happy, they also danced to the rhythm. That night, Allison said that she liked Ella. And after leaving the island, she wanted to marry him. Hearing that, Ella was surprised and didn't say a word. She didn't expect that Allison liked her. But a few moments later, she finally answered that she couldn't do that because she had given all her soul to God. Hearing that, Allison was very disappointed and heartbroken because she was rejected by a sailor. She immediately went to cool her mind. The next day, Allison was still standing on the shore. Ella saw her and approached her and apologized for what was said to her last night. Allison also asked Ella to forget what she said yesterday because she was just kidding. She also left. That night, Ella found a bottle of amber in a rice bag and she gave it to Allison. Then Allison asked Ella to drink and get drunk together. But Ella didn't want to drink a lot until she was drunk because if she drank too much, Allison would get drunk and talk nonsense while expressing her feelings. When Ella stopped drinking, Allison couldn't control herself and kept talking nonsense and getting angry. Because of the stress with Allison, who was already drunk and couldn't be controlled, Ella also cried. When Allison would hug her, spontaneously, Ella also ran away and left the place. After what happened last night, Allison also found Ella, who was already weak, maybe because of the rain last night outside. With a guilty feeling, Allison took her to the bay. But suddenly, there was a Japanese ship and its anchors returned to the island. Then, she rushed back to her hidden cave. Because of Ella's condition, she got more and more cold. Allison then dared to steal a blanket at the Japanese camp to cover Ella, who was lying sick. When she saw the situation, she snuck into one of the closest tents. As soon as she got there, Allison immediately took a blanket that was there. And when Allison didn't come out, this is what happened. Allison was shocked and panicked when she saw one of the Japanese soldiers entering the tent and shouted to call his friend. But how lucky Allison was. The Japanese soldier's shout was not heard by her other friends. So Allison also dueled and killed the Japanese soldier with her commando knife. Because of fear of being caught, Allison also threw her body into the sea. As soon as she arrived in Goa, Allison immediately covered Ella with the blanket she brought. A few days after that incident, Ella's condition began to improve. She asked what happened and why they are now in Goa. Then Allison replied that Ella was lying sick for 3 days and the Japanese soldier returned to this island. Then Ella thanked Allison because she was willing to take the blanket for herself. Allison also said, "Ella, don't thank me. It's all my fault. Because if it weren't for Allison, Ella couldn't have been raining and sick like this." Ella then said, at that time, not because she was afraid of Allison, but more because she was afraid of what was said to be Allison who made her anxious. And Ella also added, if the Japanese soldier left this island and she was destined by God to stop being a nurse, she wanted to live happily with him. The short story of the morning came, where the next day, Allison saw from near Goa that at that time the Japanese soldier was burning every bush around the island. Seeing the danger, she immediately rushed into Goa and told Ella about it. It was possible because the Japanese soldier had already found the body of the Japanese soldier who she killed when she took the blanket. Then Allison also told Ella to hide in Goa, while Allison herself was preparing to welcome the enemy. When the enemy was already in the mouth of Goa, they threatened to throw grenades into Goa if they didn't come out. At that time, all of a sudden, Allison was still lucky. Suddenly, the Japanese soldier was ambushed by the American Air Force, who was bombing the Japanese soldier on the island. Allison was happy because her side was already on this island. Waiting in Goa for a long time, the battle was not over yet. Then Allison, as a true soldier, wanted to take part in this battle and had a tactical strategy so that there were not many victims on her side. The way was to destroy all the enemy artillery on this island. Then she bid farewell to Ella and asked for permission so that her plan would go smoothly. In the middle of this mission, Allison was lucky because the Japanese soldier was still hiding in the bunkers and hadn't fought a little yet. With this opportunity, Allison didn't hesitate to destroy their artillery one by one. Even though Allison was shot, she still resisted and fought to destroy all the Japanese artillery. With that determination, Allison finally managed to destroy all the enemy artillery and bring victory to America against Japan. Allison also bid farewell to Ella because she would go with her comrade to their base. Ella then said, no matter how far they are, Allison will always be in her heart and will always be together forever. Not long after, the U.S. had landed on this island and they were surprised by the artillery that had been destroyed and had played an important role in reducing the number of victims on the U.S. side. It was all thanks to Allison's amazing action. Then Allison and her friends left the island. That's the story of this movie.